Hello. Today I'd like to talk about two very courageous women during the American Revolution. Their names were Rachel and Grace Martin. And yes, they were sisters, but not by birth. They actually were married into the Martin family and were sisters-in-law. The Martin family lived in Edgefield, South Carolina. It was so named because it was right on the edge of Indian Territory and the American colonies. The Martin family was staunchly patriotic and was in favor of the Continental Army winning the American Revolution. The mother of the Martin family, Elizabeth Martin, is said to have possibly been a member of Chief Justice John Marshall's family, as that was her maiden name, and she grew up in the same neighborhood as him. However, after she was married, she moved to Edgefield, South Carolina with her husband. There she had 9 children, 8 of which were boys, 7 of which served in the Continental Army during the American Revolution. Her eldest son married Grace Martin, and one of her other sons, Barclay Martin, married Rachel. During the war, while their husbands were off fighting, Rachel and Grace both stayed at the home of their mother-in-law. While they were there, they got word that a British courier was coming near their home, and he would be accompanied by 2 British soldiers because he was carrying important information to two top British generals. Now, how they got this information, I'm not clear. Sources didn't say. But what they did about it is the interesting part. In order to stop this information, because it was a sparsely populated area, the men were off fighting, they decided to take matters into their own hands. They dressed in their husbands' clothes, grabbed muskets and bayonets, and decided to waylay these soldiers and the courier on the road near their home. So they waited until the evening when they thought they would be coming by, and dressed as men, they were able to stop the British soldiers, get them to surrender, and obtain the information from the courier. It is said that the British soldiers were so surprised that they gave up without even a fight. And the women even had the officers paroled, meaning they made them sign oaths that they would not take up arms against the Continental Army anymore. After getting this information, they were able to get it to a trusted messenger who took it to General Greene of the Continental Army. Now, sources didn't say this, but it seems that the way that they handled the situation, this probably wasn't the first clandestine activity that they had been involved with, and that somehow they had all along been passing along information. Again, sources didn't exactly say that. That's just my opinion. But what happened after they got the information is the really interesting part of this story. You see, after they got back home and changed back into their normal clothes, they entered their dining room to find the same British soldiers that they had just stopped on the road, sitting at their dining room table. The British soldiers had turned around and came back from where they had come from and stopped at the Martin home asking for quarter for the night. Elizabeth Martin did so and allowed them to come in. The ladies were nervous, I'm sure. But the British soldiers didn't recognize them. I guess their disguises and the cover of darkness was enough to hide their identities, because the British soldiers left the next morning, never knowing that the women they shared that dinner table with were actually the rebel boys they said had stopped them on the roads. It's an interesting story, because these women risked their lives to help fight a cause. It makes me think, is there anything that I believe in enough that I am willing to risk my life for? Think about it. If these women had gotten caught, they would have definitely been killed or imprisoned, or who knows. But they did it anyway to save the lives of their husbands, their brothers, and because it was a cause they believed deeply in. I wonder, what do we believe in? Do our beliefs run that deep? It's a question I think all of us can ponder, and lessons that we can learn from these women in the American Revolution who were courageous and risked their lives for something that they truly believed in. Thank you.